Hi guys. Thank you for watching my channel. This is Meredith. I'm doing another video today and it's going to be talking a little bit more about my awakening process, but also talking about like the dark side of persuasion, and magic in a sense, but you'll see where I'm going with it when I get to it. So I hope also that this video, for one, finds you well today. For two, comes out looking better than the last one, because the last one was sideways. So that's super annoying and I apologize for that. So I'm just gonna jump right in. So in like the major part of my awakening, and I touched on this in my last video. A big part of that for me was, kind of like the realization that, like, okay, the only thing that I have control over is myself. And, my thoughts, my words, my actions, how I react to things, like even something negative that happens. You can say either, oh my gosh, like, why is this happening to me? Like, wah, wah, wah. Or you can, look for the lesson in it and say, what is this trying to teach me? Or alchemize the situation and just say, like, okay, well, like, maybe this really doesn't have anything to do with me at all. And a large part of the process is kind of the realization that other people don't, like, for the most part, are not, which is going to be part of the story today. Which I also want to say before I get started in sharing this story, my intent is not to call certain people out. It's really just sharing my story and like how I unraveled it and how I overcame these things. So that's not my intent. We're just gonna leave it with that. But so in that, like, you also get to choose the effect that you're having on other people. So, if you're planting seeds, like nice seeds and nice things in someone's head and in someone's mind, they're going to prosper because of that. They're going to feel more inspired. They're going to feel more empowered in themselves. And they're going to, it's going to help them. You can literally either bless someone with your words or curse someone with your words. And that is a very basic, generalized sort of view of that. Like, I understand it's more complicated than that, and I will attempt to get into it. So in working for the timeshare company and studying a lot of persuasion. So I've been studying persuasion for 2007. So like 12 years now. Like, I went to a persuasion conference with my dad in Las Vegas the month before I went to my freshman year in college. And, at the time I was like, well, this is really cool. Like, I can see how this is useful and beneficial, but like, I'm also just very focused on school and focused on partying, because what else are you focused on when you're a freshman in college other than like getting boys and drinking alcohol? Grades, a little bit of grades, but you're not trying to be like, oh, let me become a leader and let me learn to speak in a certain way so that it affects people in a certain way. So when I started working for this company, I had the persuasion course from this guy that I went to the seminar for, and I started going through it again to get better at sales. My goal with it was to improve my sales and improve my ability to persuade other people. in doing so, he has these things called mind sessions. Mind sessions, I think it's what they're called. What are they called? I don't know. He uses like a light and sound machine. I can't think of the specific name that he uses. But these sessions are intended to really kind of get your mind in a place where you can adopt the skills and adopt the patterns of speech and the word choices together to learn them faster. Learning sessions, that's what they're called. To learn them faster and to kind of let the information sink in faster than if you were just going through the content and applying it. So I was listening to a lot of these. So then I had this moment, and the company I was working for, they do have a great product. However, some of the salespeople, especially the sales managers that I don't believe are still there, but were directly managing me when I started, are into very diversive manipulative tactics. Instead of just like, I would tell people straight up, like, this is what it is, like, you're gonna have fees, like, you're gonna have this, like, does this work for you? Is this something that you can get on board with? Is this something that you want to do, an investment that you want to make in yourself? And knowing all the fees and knowing everything, if they still said, you know what, yeah, like, I think this is really going to benefit me, it's like, okay, great, then, like, that's perfect, let's do it. Excuse me. So one of my last little, like, training day, in the last week I was with the company, I went to this training, and the girl giving the training was, like, giving visual examples of how you should talk to your tours, is what they called like, how you should talk to your people that you're trying to sell, and what you should say to them, and how you should get them to buy. And it was like, oh, don't tell them about the fees, like, don't tell them about this, just, like, make them think, like, fear of loss, and, like, basically put on this whole charade by calling in your manager and being like, oh, I'll get you a deal, and just manipulative shit. And I think the analogy she used was, you're the doctor, you're trying to find their pain, but in reality, you're just creating the pain. So, I just had this, like, realization. I'm like, I'm not willing to manipulate people for a living, like, I'm not willing to do to other people what I'm trying to heal from. And then the other side of that was, because I'd always studied persuasion in a salesy sense. Let me get good at persuasion so I can get better at sales, and so I can make more money, and be better at my job. And that was the way I'd always approached it. But then I had this moment where I'm like, wait a second. I can use these same skills to help people unlock things in their own mind, to make them better and to make them grow and to help them to overcome things that they're struggling with, that they probably don't even know what it is that's keeping them stuck in those patterns, because it's just something that's so ingrained. So that was the other side of it. And then it was just like, whoa, like, maybe I should be a life coach, and maybe that's what I'll end up doing in some form or fashion. But then I started looking at like every time I would start a new job and I'd have success, like immediate success, not really any, like, learning curve, I guess you can say, or there would be a learning curve, but I would have immediate success with whatever job I was doing. And then without fail, within a month or two, I'd start having success, and then something would happen to screw the whole thing up and sabotage the entire thing. And it was like, why do I keep creating these patterns? Like, why? And, you know, I did have a moment in 2016. So I was living in Minnesota, and I mean, it was like within a month after I'd moved up there, I was thinking one day, and I was just like, I really don't love myself at all. Like, I don't love myself. I don't know how to love myself. I don't even know what that looks like, because I've never seen a healthy example of what that is. And so, you know, knowing that, and then studying all this persuasion, I'm like, you know, and the self-sabotage, it was like, okay, well, like, how am I sabotaging myself because I don't love myself? And how am I repeating these patterns? But, like, let's take it way back. Like, what happened in my childhood or my upbringing that made me have this feeling? Like, where did it go wrong? So I started going back and unraveling, and really from just the standpoint of wanting to heal and move through it, because I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm so fed up with this shit. Like, I don't even care anymore, like, what it was that made me this way. Like, I used to want to know the answers, and like, I want to know exactly why, exactly the memory. Let me pinpoint the exact memory of when this occurred so that I can reverse it. And, you know, I did end up doing that. You know, I'm like, I don't care, like, what the memory is. I just want it gone. And the only way that I knew how to do that was to go, you know, travel back in time in my memories, in my mind, and to say, like, okay, this is this, sorting things into their proper place and saying, this is the instance that created this response. And then noticing I've been living my whole life because of this one thing. So, you know, a lot of people that don't have super toxic family systems probably can't relate at all. And they think that, you know, people who tell stories of living in these family systems are just telling stories, you know, like, they think it's just a fiction, a fable. And because people that don't have this kind of experience or this frame of reference think that they're like, there's no way that someone could be that horrible. There's no way. Like, you're just deluded. So my family that, you know, this one member of my family, I don't know what her true motives really were, you know. Hurt people, but, you know, it was more than that. But she came in, she, you know, disrupted and this was like my father's parents. So she came in, she just totally destroyed the family, disrupted everything, you know, and then made up lies. And then, like, as me, my sister, and my cousins were growing up, tried to paint a story and twist the truth and twist the faction, because we weren't there to experience it. So we don't actually know. All we have to go on is someone else's word, which, you know, I'm sorry, but there's no benefit in telling a child or a teenager, like, oh, well, like, your grandparents, or, you know, your other, you know, telling stories about members of your family. What benefit is that serving? How is that really helping anyone? It's not, you know, it's purely manipulation. And, you know, she did a real number on me in my upbringing, because I always felt very close to her, and I always felt like we had a lot in common, and I always felt like she was someone that I could confide in, you know. And here I am listening hook, line, and sinker to every single thing that she would tell me, and then realizing later, like, this is not the advice that she would give herself, and, you know, so, like, you know, my sister and I were living with our mom, and it was it was difficult because of the whole dynamic that she essentially had created, you know. The old adage that people are guilty of what they accuse other people of being guilty of. So if someone is sitting there saying, oh, they're fake, they're a narcissist, they're this, like, actually, you're the narcissist. So, you know, my mom and my sister and I were having issues with our mom. So we would talk to this grandmother and we'd tell her what was going on and say, you know, I can't believe this is crazy. And she'd say, yeah, you know, that's pretty insane. Like, I don't know what to tell you about that. And then my mom would talk to her and be like, why are these children acting like this? And she would tell my mom, yeah, you're right. They're such little shits. Like, I'm going to talk to them about this. I don't know why they're behaving this way. So then, you know, one day my mom finally confronted me about it. And she's like, why are you not getting this? Like, how are you... Everyone is telling you this. How are you not seeing it? I'm like, you're the only person telling me this. And she's like, well, you know, your grandmother is saying that she's talking to you about this. Like, and I'm like, no, she's not. She's like, so she hasn't said anything about this to you. And it's like, no. So then it was just kind of a moment of like, okay, so she's really just manipulating the both of us. And it was, you know, another big part of it was being in a wreck when I was 10 on Christmas Eve. And I also had, you know, that scared me. I think that's when I really started to like turn off my psychic gifts because it scared the fuck out of me. Because so my mom and I were going to drive around, look at Christmas lights. And my dad and my sister stayed home. It was just me, my mom, my dog. And as soon as I stepped foot out the door to walk to the car, I had this overwhelming feeling of dread, like in the pit of my stomach. And I was just like, something bad is going to happen. And I just like kind of paused and was like, you know, okay. And then my mom, you know, I was a child. I didn't, you know, I guess based on previous experiences in my childhood of trying to explain like these things and not getting a correct response, I'm like, well, I'm not going to mention it. So my mom was locking the door and she turns around and she's like, what's wrong? I'm like, you know, nothing. So I try to just brush it off and forget about it and be like, okay, well, like, you know, whatever. But the whole car ride, I just had this pit in my stomach of like, something bad is going to happen. So right before we turned on the street where we got into the wreck, it came back super strong. Like, I'm talking like an overwhelming, just like indescribable, but like completely debilitating. Like, it was just like, whoa. So it came back super strong. And my mom, you know, we're driving down the street. It didn't take it happened like within 30 seconds of turning onto the street. And there was this guy swerving. And my mom was like, look, you know, look at that guy. He's swerving. Look. And I was like, yeah. At this time, I was sitting on my knees in the front, facing the back of the car like this. And I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. And, you know, she's like, oh, wow, look at him. He's really swerving. So I'm like, yeah. And then she's like, oh, shit. And then she's like, oh, and then she started like freaking out. And I turned to look like out the car. And the last thing I remember is seeing bright lights. You know, he was headed straight for my side. At the last minute, my mom turned the car, so we hit like head on. We both passed out. The guy was drunk, really, really drunk. Like 2 times over the legal limit, 2 or 3 times. Like, he was very drunk. He was very, very drunk. And he died on the scene. He wasn't wearing his seatbelt. He died on the scene. I wake up on the floor with Diet Coke all over my face. And I was like, oh my God, like freaking out because I thought it was blood. And, you know, the only thing that came of it, I have this sort of bump on my head. I don't know if you can like see it. And that's really the only damage I had. My mom needed stitches because the emergency brake slammed into her leg. But that's, you know, and poor Minnie, our dog, like before I passed out, the last thing I heard was her hitting the back of my seat. Poor baby probably had a headache when she got out the car and she's running around barking. But we walked out incredibly lucky. And, when I woke up, the feeling was gone. That intense feeling of something bad is going to happen was gone. But then I'm like, what the fuck just happened? What was that? And, in my recent, inner child healing, because I was working a lot on that, because it's like, okay, I'm not just going to be able to just skim over and just say, I don't care what the emotion is. I don't care what the memory is. I just want it gone. Because if you don't revisit the memory to some extent and revisit the feelings as an adult with more experience, it's going to be really hard to move on, because you're not going to be able to put the feelings in their proper box and say, this is what this is. This is how I have to organize these thoughts. So in an inner child healing, a lot of my self-worth and self-love came from that wreck, because the guy died on the scene. His children went to school with my sister and I, and my mom did try to put me in counseling. She doesn't remember this, but she did. She tried to put me in counseling, and she tried to help me through it, but I completely withdrew from everyone. I didn't know how to help myself. I didn't know what I needed, help with. And at the same time, I felt like I wouldn't be taken seriously, because it was and I felt somewhat responsible, because it's I saw this happening. I knew something was going to happen, and I didn't say anything. And this guy died. And, could I have prevented this? And there's, a lot of, well, why did he die? Why did I live? So that was a big part of it. But then another part of it, was this grandmother who was giving us horrible, horrible advice. She's the type that, and this is getting into, the dark side of persuasion and magic, So she's the type to where she'll sit there and she's very intelligent. She's very cunning and manipulative with what she does, but she'll sit there and talk about people and say, well, they're like this. They're just a narcissist. They're just a drug addict. They're just this and this and this. And then she'll create situations that she knows are going to push their buttons, and that she knows are going to cause a reaction from people, from the person that's being talked about. They're going to react in a way that she can then sit there and point fingers and say, see, I told you so. See, I told you that they were this way. And then the other people are yeah, you're right, they are this way. And, by doing that, you are cursing. You are basically placing curses on people's lives. But, that is effectively black magic, because you're having people come in and say, oh, yeah, you're right. Let me, agree with you about this horrible thing about this person that may or may not be true, but I'm going to agree with you. And that gives it power. That gives power to the words. That gives power to the thoughts. So then if you have multiple people in on it saying, yep, they are that way. Yep, they are. You're going to grow up with a very tainted worldview of who people actually are, because all you're believing is, the manipulation that you've been told about this person. So part of it was, oh, they're such narcissists. They're, don't listen to anything they say. Everything they accuse you of, they're guilty of. They're just so obsessed with themselves and this and this and this. So I was taught from a very young age that self-care and self-worth were narcissistic tendencies. And I watched what she did to the members of my family that she decided were narcissists. And she totally destroyed them. So I decided at a very young age, I'm not going to be the one, I don't want to be labeled as that, and I don't want to get in her way and stand up for her, because the same thing is going to happen to me, which it did. I mean, she, threw me under the bus with people, and she cut me out of their lives and made up all these lies and rumors about me, because it's the only way that she can sit there and say, see, I told you so, I'm right. So that's an extreme example. But, part of it is once you, and I guess the point of me telling that part of the story is just to, kind of realizing these things for myself, through studying persuasion and then being like, wow, okay, so there's a dark side to persuasion. You know, the manipulation in sales. A lot of people that are really good at persuasion, you know, are really good on picking up on cues and really good at patterning language and speaking in such a way that elicits a certain tone and a certain feeling and a certain response from people. Like the greats in the industry, they can sit there and run circles around your brain before you even know what's going on. Because they're just so good at it. And I was studying the persuasion, and one of like, so when I'm working at this company, one of the guys comes in who's like the sales director. So he obviously like is really good at this because like, you know, I'm sorry, but like you're not going to get to the top of that market. You're not going to be the best in any sales job just by following a sales script and doing the steps of the sale. And oh, well, you know, how do you like to vacation? Like, what's your you know, like, what are your vacation habits? Let me take you through all these bullshit steps. Like, how much money you spend. Like, if you're going to be really good at that job, you're not going to get to being really good at that job by reading off a script to people. So this guy comes in one day and we're having like a training, and, you know, I was studying like this exact thing in the persuasion. And he comes in and he does a little scenario, and the words he's using, the patterning, the language, the eliciting, the anchoring, all of like the big persuasion things. I was just watching him and I'm like, this is what I'm studying. So I mean, if you're good at doing persuasion, you can literally take someone and put them in a better place or screw with their mind. And you know, it gets to a point. So like I definitely used to live in like victim consciousness. Just, why is this happening to me? Like, why am I the victim? Why is my life, why did I get this life? Like, I wish I was born into a better family. I wish that I was born into a family that wasn't so horrible to each other. Just a lot of like victim consciousness, victim patterning. So I definitely used to be there and used to live in that. But then you get to a point that, you know, you realize like, okay, like, be it as it may that they were telling me these things. And, you know, if someone's very good at manipulation and very good at persuasion and using the dark side of persuasion for their own benefits, it's extremely difficult to recognize. Like, I'm not saying that like it's easy to just recognize like, okay, they're just telling me these things, but I'm the one actually holding myself back by internalizing and accepting this as being a part of my identity. Which is the ultimate, like, there is no power. The words hold no power over you if you don't give them power. If you say, you know what, this isn't who I am anymore. I'm not accepting this as my story. Then, you know, sound cliche, but like the whole game changes and you're like, I've been the one holding myself back because I've allowed these other people to get into my head and to interfere with my own thoughts and feelings about myself. And, you know, hurt people, I guess. But, you know, so it's like a part of me, you know, has sympathy for her because it's like, well, you must just be really unhappy. Like, you must just really, someone must have really hurt you for you to feel like you have the right to come and fuck with a whole generation plus of people because you're upset. You know, like, on the one hand, like, I feel really bad for you that this happened to you. But on the other hand, it's like, at some point, like, you have to take responsibility and you have to be like, at some point, you know exactly what the fuck you're doing to other people. And you can't just stick your head in the sand and say, oh, I didn't realize, like, I was having that effect. Yes, you fucking did. And, you know, like, responsibility. And, you know, the other side of, so, I mean, you see it a lot in, like, sales, just, oh, let's just be manipulative, and the whole, like, mean girl clique, and, oh, well, let's just, like, sit here and be bullies. And I fucking hate the bully culture. Like, I'm sorry, but when did mean and cruel and bullying people become cool? When, why, when and where and why, how is it considered acceptable to tear people apart? Why is that a part of our society that people are just accept blindly? And then people play into it and say, oh yeah, I'm going to make fun of her too because you want to fit in and you want to look cool. But, you know, it's just, I have a big problem with that. I have a big problem with that. So, let's see. You know, you get undoing the patterns. So, you know, yeah, you do get to a point where you accept responsibility for your own actions and your own part in it, because even if, like, you know, shit happened to you, and even if it was out of your control and it wasn't your fault, at some point you still embodied that as being part of who you are and part of your identity, and you still took that on and let it affect you. So, like, once you get to the point that you're like, nope, I'm taking my power back, you're not going to tell me who I am and what I can do, that's for me to decide. And, you know, saying, like, okay, I've been holding myself back because I've just given in to this view that other people have, like, said about me. You know, and for a long time, my thought process was, well, they think this about me anyway, like, whatever. If they're going to think this about me, they're going to think it about me, and there's nothing that I can do or say that is going to change the way they think about me. So you just play right into it. And it's like, I'm just going to play right into this story that is wanting to be said about me, and I'm going to play right into that role. But then it's like, okay, I'm not going to let this affect me anymore. I'm going to take control of my own life. And then it's going back and, like, undoing all the patterning and undoing all, like, the programming, which is, like, a big part of society as well. But, like, going in and being like, where have my thought patterns, where have I been told things about myself that do not resonate with who I truly am? And I've taken that on, and maybe I need to just let go of. Undoing patterns. But yeah, so, like, persuasion can be used if you use it the right way. It can be used to free you. It can be used to, you know, shut the nail in the coffin even further, or you can use it to, you know, unlock your brain and unlock your life. And that's just one of the many skills that I've developed. So I guess kind of with the spiritual gifts too. Like, I always thought that, like, that I was just really smart and I was just really good at reading people. And I'm like, well, I'm just really intelligent and I'm good at reading people, so that's why I'm, you know, whatever. Like, that's why I'm good at sales and persuasion, because I'm just good at reading people. When it was actually, a lot of it was actually spiritual gifts. Like, yes, I am smart. Yes, I am good at reading people. But it's also, like, I would get intuitive downloads and, like, in visions and just inner knowing about a situation. But it's like, I lived the majority of my life in a constant war with myself between what my intuition, what my heart was telling me, and, like, what I was being told and what I was observing in the outside world. So, you know, my awakening really hit me hard to be like, to be in that place of power, to be like, I'm taking my power back and I'm the one that's going to decide for myself. And then it's like, I mean, it's hard work. It's not easy, especially if you're doing it by yourself. So, like, I've been trying to rebuild my financial situation from a year, 2 years ago. Like, I've been working really hard on rebuilding my financial situation, but it's not anywhere close to where I want it to be. I mean, it's like, and maybe I just need to shift my mindset with that, but it's like being in the struggle. Like, I'm so used to, like, the struggle that, like, I don't know how to get out of the struggle. Like, I know it's a simple, like, a simple, like, so Shallow Hal, the movie, when Tony Robbins is like, shallow Hal gets a gal, and then he, like, you know, sees people's for, like, their souls and not, like, their looks and their outward appearances. And I truly believe that it really is as simple as, like, I haven't stumbled upon the right phrase or the right string of words or the right, I mean, it's not going to be, like, as silly, but I know that getting out of the struggle is really just a matter of, like, switching on a light. Like, I just haven't found the right set of phrases yet to release myself from this illusion of suffering that I've created. So, you know, I have done a lot to heal. I mean, a year ago, Thanksgiving, I was in such a horrible place. I was just, you know, I was trying to work on self-love. I was trying to figure out how to do that because, I mean, shit, even if you're like, well, how do I love myself? I'm going to go Google that. How do I love myself? And you have articles like, oh, you know, treat yourself to self-care. And it's like, okay, I have no problem spending money on massages and like I have absolutely no problem at all with treating myself. That's not my problem. And that's maybe the source of some of my financial problems. I mean, you know, like I don't have any savings because I like to spend money and I like to buy shit. Like at least I know this about myself. And I'm working on, you know, rewiring some of those patterns. But it's the fact, like I've made decent amounts of money in the past. I just have had a really hard time saving it. So it's like I have no problem with the spending of money and the self-care. Like, you know, I've never had a problem with that. But it's like that's not the whole answer, and like you're not gonna find too many people who are gonna tell you that, okay, like if you want to learn to love yourself, you have to come to terms with all your demons, you know, come face to face with them metaphorically, and you know, okay, this is how I'm holding myself back, and it, you know, it comes in waves, I guess. You know, you're not just gonna have all the answers at once. Like it's A, not sustainable to try to fix everything at once, and B, it's just not gonna happen. Like I've had moments where I'm like, let me just totally transform my life, change every single thing about my life. So I'm like, okay, and I'll do it for a few days. Like I'll, you know, wake up and go run, which, you know, I'm getting better. Like I've been working on some of these things, so some of these things are ingrained now. But you know, a year or two ago, I'd have like a week-long stretch where I got up and I worked out and, you know, I got dressed and looked cute for the day and did all the things that like I thought that I needed to do. But because I was ate healthy, you know, cut out all the bad foods. But because I was trying to change all of these things at once and I wasn't really dealing with the underlying root issues causing them, they weren't sustainable. And then, you know, that would almost make me even more depressed because you're trying to get traction and you're trying to have little small wins and little small victories to make yourself feel better about, you know, yourself and like increase your self-worth. But then it's like you have these small victories and then you get smacked down again and it just, you know, makes you more depressed because it's like, well, why can't I do this? Why can't I do this? Like, I'm wanting to work out. Why is it so hard for me to work out? Like, why is that so difficult for me? If it's something that I want to do and it's something I know that's going to make me feel and look better, like, why is it so difficult? And it's like, if you don't at a base level feel that you are worthy and deserving of anything like love, I mean, it comes down to a basic deservingness of love, and that you have to show yourself love first. No one is going to show you the love that you feel that you are worthy of having, because no one is you. No one else is going to be able to deliver that to you. Love it when I get sidetracked. Right in the middle of a good point. Right in the middle of like making my point. And then I'm like, you know, it just leaves me. It just... Um, and part of that is learning to like reparent yourself, because my parents did a wonderful job raising me, all things considered, but I'm gonna just stop with that. They had their own issues and their own things, and they did the best that they had with what they had. But I'm also a very, very stubborn person, very headstrong child. I'm one of those people that has to learn by experiencing and fucking up and saying, okay, I don't want to have that experience again. I've learned my lesson that that's not good for me, and I would like to avoid attracting any more of that into my life. I'm one of those people that has to, I wish that I could learn by people just telling me, Meredith, don't do this because this will happen, and just listening to the story and being like, okay, you're right, I can see that, so I'm gonna listen to the advice. I wish that I could be that kind of a person. It's just not who I am. Yeah. So, they really did the best job that they could, but part of it is learning to, like, trust yourself. Like, it doesn't matter if everyone else is saying, like, you're insane, or, you're insane, or you're this and this and this. If you don't take on that identity and you don't say, you know what, I am, like, I just need to go lock myself away in a hospital forever because I'm insane. Even if everyone is telling you that, if you say, well, you know what, that's a nice opinion, thank you for your opinion, you're entitled to have whatever opinion you want to have about anything, yet that's not who I am, and that doesn't resonate with me, and I'm not going to adopt that as part of my identity. It doesn't matter what other people think or believe or say about you. It matters what you think, believe, say, and do about yourself. And if someone comes at you with something saying, you're this, and that you're not, and, don't take on that identity. Don't take on that. Just say, you know what, I'm just going to let that go. That's not who I am. That's not what I resonate with. That's not me. And moving on. And then, a big part of healing and transforming your life is letting go of a lot of the old versions of yourself that used to really mean something to you. They used to hold a lot of resonance. That used to be your identity, your ego. That's who you used to be, and that's the face that you used to show to the world. So it's like, even in my brokenness and my victimhood, like, I'm still, like, that's still the way that, that's still part of the identity that I want to project for my ego, because it's keeping me safe in this place where I just come across as a train wreck. But, maybe that's just, there's charm in the train wreck, or, whatever. And it's like, okay, is this really who I think that I am? And if it's not, what story am I painting for myself? And, what story can I start painting for myself? So it gets easier, but it's pretty difficult at first to notice your patterns and, like, things that you don't even realize you're self-sabotaging with. And in the moment being like, you know what? Like, I could just go and do this same thing that I do all the time in response, or I can sit and think about it and say, okay, this isn't the same story that I want to keep telling. This isn't the story that I want to keep repeating for myself. So in my ideal life, in the picture in my head that I paint of what I want my life to look like, the version of myself living in that reality what choice would she make in this situation? And, you know, what choice would the person that I want to be? So one of my little projects was Ultra Fab Life, and I never did anything with it, which, you know, I think I used to be very hard on myself about why I couldn't continue with things that I wanted to do. And I think it was a lack of feeling like I was deserving of having them. So, you know, just feeling like, well, who am I to feel like I'm an expert on this topic or this topic? And I really fought an inner battle, a struggle with myself for a long time about, like, well, I know that I'm capable of doing this and I know that I can do this, versus like what other people think and say and believe. So the Ultra Fab Life, the whole premise, and I might bring that back, I haven't decided yet. I just kind of liked the name. That was like my, you know, my project, Ultra Fab Life. And the whole premise of that was encouraging people to live their best lives, you know, whatever that is for them. You know, so in New Orleans, as much as I dislike living in New Orleans because of the politics and the programming and the structure of the society here and just everything else, you know, there are a lot of great things about New Orleans that I absolutely missed once I moved away. And there's this one guy, he stands on Louisiana and I think it's Louisiana and St. Charles. And I don't know if he still stands there, but prior to me moving away, he was always there at, Louisiana and St. Charles, playing his saxophone. And he would just sit out there all day playing his little saxophone and just constantly. And it's such a heartwarming thing. You know, I saw him when I came back. I saw him even times that I would come and visit. When I would see him, I would just feel so happy because I was just like, he's still there. He's still playing his saxophone. And like, that's what's important to him, you know? And I read a story about him that he got arrested and they took his saxophone. So this poor sweet man stood on the corner every day for like 3 months collecting change until he could purchase himself a new saxophone so that he could go stand on the street corner and play the saxophone. And I'm like, you know what? Like, that's so amazing. Like, he is honestly living the version of his life that he resonates with the most. And it's not about fitting yourself into a category that other people tell you to be, and it's not about fitting yourself into a fabulous life that other people, that's fabulous to them, you know? I enjoy fashion and dressing up nice and doing my makeup. I've always enjoyed that. I enjoy the beach. I really like heels, you know, like high heels, and dressing up and traveling. And my ideal version of my best life is just being able to travel and do whatever I want, whenever I want to do it, and helping and inspiring people along the way, and, you know, being supported to inspire people and to do what I'm here to do. But just because I like doing my makeup, which is, it's really cool today, it's purple, just because that's what I like to do, that doesn't mean that that's what everybody likes to do. And I wouldn't expect everybody to want to do their makeup. I wouldn't, that's silly. That's like, you know, saying, well, because I'm a brunette, everyone has to be a brunette. You know, that's not, just because something works for you, it doesn't work for everyone. And it's about finding what it is that calls to you and what it is that you want to do and what makes you happy and what makes you fulfilled. Fuck what everyone else says. If it's what makes you happy and what is true for you, then do it, you know? And a big part of like this whole thing for me is just like, I've held myself back for so long and in so many ways because I've been so afraid of what other people would say and think about me. I've just been so afraid. So the only person I've been hurting is myself. By keeping myself small and by keeping myself stuck, the only person I've hurt is me. Because the people who are going to judge me, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. They're going to find a way to judge me anyway. If that's what someone's about, and someone's about looking for the negative in every situation and looking for things to judge people about, they're going to find anything to judge you about. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You're going to be judged for it. So why not live your best version of your authentic life and your authentic self? If you're going to be judged anyway, like, do what the fuck makes you happy and do what the fuck you want to do. If you want to go work at a restaurant flipping burgers and that's what really makes you happy, like, go do it. Who cares? Who cares what anyone else says and thinks? Like for like my little odd jobs this year, I've done a lot of dog walking. I'm like, a lot of people do it just for the money, which is true in every industry and every practice. And, I would say a word of caution, be leery of people in anything that are just doing it for the money. The people that don't actually care, they're just interested in what they can get out of it monetarily, but they probably don't even know what they're talking about in real life. Just be wary of that. But I would walk dogs because I guess my dad and I share a dog. Like when I was living in Minnesota, we got her, so she's both of our dogs, but she stayed with him when I left Minnesota. So I guess she's more his dog. And I love dogs. I love animals. Like, it brings out the playful side of my personality. And like the innocence. Like, I love dogs. So I'm like, I'm going to go walk dogs because A, I get to make money, but B, I don't have a dog right now. Don't feel like I'm in a place where I can have a dog of my own again. So I'm going to go play with other people's dogs. And bonus, I get money for it, but I also get to go play with dogs. Yeah, I probably could have made more money doing other things, but that's what made me happy at the time, so that's what I did. And, once you learn, the first step, the hardest task really is deciding what you want for your future, irregardless of where you are now and the life you've allowed yourself to live up until this point, because it is all on you. It is your choice. Like, you're the one who's chosen for yourself the reality that you're currently experiencing, and you can't put that on anyone else. That's on you. If you don't like the way your life looks, do something to change it, because you're the only one that can. You can look at other people, you can be inspired by other people, you can read all the inspirational, motivational type things in the world that you want, but at some point you're the one that has to take action and actually do the things to change your life to make it the way that you want to make it. Love it when I get sidetracked. Very distracted. So I live in a house next to a house that has a pool, and it's a really nice pool. So I'm always listening to the running water, and I really like my view a lot. So I'm getting distracted or mentally getting distracted looking at this house and just thinking random thoughts, because that's just who I am. So I don't even remember. I mean, I remember what I was talking about, but I don't remember where I was going with that specific story. Let's see, we're talking about... Oh, yes. So one of the hardest things to do is to be in this place where you are now and to say, like, okay, this is where I am, but who do I really want to be? What do I really want for my life? Where do I want to be? Like, how to actually sit down and write out and imagine and visualize the type of life you actually want to live. Not the one you're living now, but the one you actually want to live. You know, that's the hardest part of it, but then it's equally as difficult to catch yourself in the moments that, I mean, I guess it's the most difficult thing to do, but once you've done it, then you sort of have like a blueprint to be like, okay, this is the person that I want to be. Like, this is how she would think, how she would act, how she would speak. This is what she would do with her free time. This is this, this, and this. And once you have that, whenever you catch yourself doing something that's not in alignment with the person that you want to become, then you have another choice. Am I going to keep repeating this pattern? Am I going to keep allowing myself to be this person that is not who I want to be? Or am I going to make a decision to change and to make a different choice and to do something different and to do something else? And, everything in life comes down to a choice. Every single thing in life comes down to a choice. And there are tools to help you, with that. Definitely look up Persuasion. Kendrick Cleveland is the dude I followed forever. He's really amazing at what he does. He is one of the pioneers in the field, and he actually has courses. I don't know if he still does. I know he did in the past because I'm on his email list and I've seen them, talking about the dark side of persuasion. And it's manipulation. You can call it black. I mean, it's not black magic in the sense of like, oh, I'm summoning a demon and I'm like having the demon like cast these spells and light these candles. But if you know what you're doing and you're choosing consciously to manipulate and control other people and their mind and how they affect and see themselves, that is, and then especially getting other people to chime in on it and being like, oh yeah, they are that person. Oh yeah, you're right. Like, look, that is effectively the same thing as black magic. But then you also have the power, like if you see someone struggling, instead of sitting there and saying, oh, look at them, they're just this, they're struggling, let's just poke and point and, push the buttons of all their insecurities and all these problems that they're facing that they might be trying to overcome, and you don't know that about them. You don't know what they are or not. Instead of sitting there and poking fun and being a bully and trying to tear people down, you could very easily say, okay, well, she's paint a different picture and say, even if it's only in your own mind, like, it doesn't matter. Say, well, maybe she's going through a hard time, or maybe she's this, or I'm always trying to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I'm always trying to find the silver lining and find the real reason, because I truly don't believe that the majority of people want to be ugly and want to be hateful on purpose. And maybe that's my naivete, because I'm not that kind of a person and I have a good heart and I'm not trying to manipulate people. That doesn't mean there aren't people out there who are doing that. I'm not too ignorant to assume that everyone is like me. But it's about having the tools to like notice it. And this is just one example. But having the tools, to kind of pinpoint it and say like, okay, this is not, no, just, I've allowed myself to get sucked into, oh, I guess I'm just a ditz. I guess I'm just, this. I guess I'm just naive. I guess I just don't know anything. I guess I just drink a lot, well, other people are telling me that. So, I guess it's true. And, no, fuck that. And fuck them. And fuck anyone who tries to tell you anything negative about yourself, who's just doing it to manipulate or be mean or be controlling or whatever other agendas that someone might have. You don't need that. No one needs that. No one does. And I have a real issue with people being bullies and a real issue with people pointing fingers at other people and calling them names and just being ugly because they're unhappy with themselves. I have a real issue with that. And yeah, so I guess part of my goal is to be able to empower people with the tools necessary to unlock their own minds and unlock their own potential, which I'm, I don't know. I'm a very intellectual person. I like to think about things, and I like to think, the Virgo in me, analyze, and then Scorpio, moon, and rising. Like, I'm just a thinker and an overthinker, a very big overthinker, very big overanalyze. I can overanalyze a situation to death. I really could. That would make me happy, sort of. But, that's the way my mind works. So, I could think and think and think forever about something. But at some point, you just have to kind of make the choice to be like, well, I might not have all the answers yet. I might not know how this is going to turn out, but I'm going to do it. And whatever happens, it's either going to go exactly the way that I want it to go, or I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to learn a lesson. And as hard as it is to learn lessons, especially when you're trying to move forward and gain momentum, is to be like, another lesson, like, can I get it right yet? It's part of the process. And it's just part of the process. It's not the person who falls down. A failure is not the person who falls down. If you never fall down, that means you're never trying. So you're never going to make a mistake if you just stay in your comfort zone and you just stay safe in your current reality of where you are now, even though it's not that comfortable. How comfortable is your comfort zone? Probably not that comfortable. That's probably like why you're being led to a message like this. That's like, hey, like, take accountability for your own shit. Because if the comfort zone was really that comfortable, there wouldn't even be this awareness of something else. If you were really that comfortable where you were, there wouldn't even be an awareness of something bigger and something greater out there that you could be doing. But yeah, it all comes down to choice. So what are you choosing today? What reality, what version of yourself are you choosing to feed? Are you, okay, yeah. I told y'all I'm very easily distractible. So yeah, a failure is not the person that never falls down. It's the person who falls down and never gets up. And then I was going to say some other little cliche quote. It's not cliche. They are cliche. Like, I'm full of random quotes and memes, and that's just like movie quotes, song lyrics. Like, they just exist. My vast reservoir of song lyrics. Like, I could any song. The majority of songs that I've heard before, like, I could sing the whole, or rap, or whatever. Like, I know all the words. And it's just, I have a very photographic memory. I've always been good at memorizing stuff. But yeah, so I guess the challenge today is to, get clear about, like, what you want for yourself. And then be honest with yourself about, like, where you're screwing up and where you need to hold yourself more accountable for the things that you're wanting to change but aren't changing, because you're the only one that can make those decisions and take those actions for yourself. No one else can or will do it for you. No one's going to do it for you. So I hope that this video was helpful today to anyone who watched it. We went over a lot, talked about persuasion, sales, manipulation, the dark side of persuasion, choices, words, and like how you speak to yourself matters too. I think I touched on that, but like, if you're, it doesn't matter what everyone else is saying about you. If you think and feel and say nice, positive things about yourself to yourself, you know, that's the only thing that matters. But you also have the power to change your reality based on the beliefs and assumptions that you hold about yourself. So don't let the haters get you down. Don't be a bully to people. Anyone who's watching this might be a bully. You know, that shit's getting old. We don't like that. And yeah, go out there and figure out what it is that you want for yourself so that you can live your best life. And I think that that is all that I have today. So thank you for joining me in this video. If you like this message, please like, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you get notified about future videos that I make. And I hope to see you back here soon for another video of another random topic. All right, have a nice day, everyone.